guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Andy, and in today's video I'm going to give you a few tips on how to not be a terrible flight attendant. Have you ever checked your schedule and seen who you're going to be flying with and just been like, oh goodness, no, not again. That girl is so terrible, or she's so judgy, or she's such a gossip, or so this or so that. Did you ever stop to think that that might be you to other people? I've thought about this so much and I try to be really super friendly and stuff, but you never really know. So I decided to write down a list of just a few tips to help you not be a terrible flight attendant. My first tip for you is to be on time. That is the first step to being a good flight attendant, is to just be on time. Just actually being early is even better. Be early. If you know your sign-on is at 5 a.m, make sure you are sitting in that office at 10 to 5, ready to go before the senior needs to come in and brief you. If your sign-on is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you decided to make a nail appointment, make sure you've got more than enough time to get to the airport and sign on with enough time. Punctuality is one of the most important parts of our jobs. We have to be on time for our sign-on, otherwise you can actually just get kicked off the flight. Not only that, it's not just as simple as just being kicked off a flight. You can actually get reported for it, and you might even get a verbal or written warning, and then your job will be at stake. Number 2, don't be a last-minute flake. We hate it when we are sitting there ready to brief and we're waiting on one person, and then right at the last minute rostering tells us that actually that person's not coming, they just called in sick. Don't be a last minute flake. Even if you really are sick, if you know that you are signing on at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then call at 8 o'clock in the morning to let rostering know that you won't be able to make it to your flight because you are feeling terrible and you'd rather go see a doctor that day. Being a last minute flake just gives you kind of that bad reputation among other crew. We'll always kind of know, oh yeah, she's that one. You can't really rely on her because when she doesn't feel like coming to work, she'll call 5 minutes before sign-on to say, I'm sick. Number 3 is greet all of your fellow crew members. I was once signing on and I am absolutely terrible at remembering people's names, people's faces, all of that kind of stuff. I honestly don't know how I function. But there is this one guy that I specifically remember because we were sitting getting ready to brief and he was not part of our crew, he was part of another crew, but he needed to get something out of the briefing room that we were sitting in. And he walked in and he personally greeted each and every crew member except for me. Like, I know I don't know you at all, like we've never met before, but you've already greeted 3 other people and I'm the only one left in the room and you just totally ignore me. Like, no, that's definitely a way for me to hate you. And as soon as he left that room, the senior actually mentioned, and she said, why didn't he greet you? Do you guys not get along? And I was like, I've never met him before in my life. Like, I was about to stand up and be like, hi, I'm Andy, but he just continued a conversation with someone else, and I was just like, okay, that's awkward. So to this day, I will always remember him for being the rude guy who didn't greet me. And that's something, it's a first impression, it's a lasting first impression. That happened like over a year ago, but to this day I still remember who he is. So just be aware when you're walking into a briefing, or if you're walking into a briefing room and there are other crew members there, even if you don't know a single one of them, shake each one of their hand and say good morning, or at least just do one general good morning everyone, can I just grab this, then it's fine. But if you are going to greet 3 people and leave 2 other people just to, like, you know, whatever, then that kind of gives other people a really bad impression of you and makes them think that you're rude. Just greet your fellow crew members. Trust me, it goes a very long way. Tip number 4, if you are a senior, or at least if you are more senior, or you know, you've been in a company for longer than other crew members, please be positive when talking to the newbies. If you think about it, if it's your first day of work and you walk in and everyone is just complaining about oh, I'm working so hard, I'm flying too much, I'm not getting enough sleep, blah 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 blah, you know, then it's such a downer. Like, I remember my first day of flying ever, like my first solo flight, where I was the crew member, signed out, everything ready to go, so excited, and the pilots I was flying with were complaining the entire day. Like, I kid you not, like when we're on the bus on the way to the plane, they were just complaining, oh, I'm flying too often, this is ridiculous, the company doesn't even listen to what I say, blah blah blah, you know. And like, for me, I'm like, why are you sitting and complaining? Change it. You know, you're not a tree. If you're not happy being somewhere so much that you can complain for 4 straight hours, then I think you should look into maybe moving or doing something else or going somewhere else. But it has a way of ruining other people's day, you know, because now my first day flying by myself, I barely remember the passengers, I barely remember anything other than the pilots were complaining all day. And that's not fair to me, you know, but also it's not fair to anyone else. I understand you want to be realistic and you want to show someone like, okay, realistically this is how this career works, but there is a difference between that and just complaining, like just complaining. Okay, I complain too sometimes, but like, I mean, if I'm meeting someone who is brand spanking new to this, I'm not going to complain the whole day. Yes, there are downsides to being a flight attendant, absolutely. There are downsides to working in aviation, to working in customer care. I'm sure there are downsides to being a lawyer. I'm sure there are downsides to being Kim Kardashian. But the first time I meet someone, that's not going to be the only thing I talk about. So if you want to be a good flight attendant, then just try to be a little bit more positive, try to be more uplifting, just try to show the newbies that there is hope, that there is good in this career, that, you know, they have made a good choice, because overall it is such a good career to have. It is so much fun to be a flight attendant. I honestly wouldn't trade this for the world, and I just hate it when people put a damper on something that I love. Tip number 5, do not, under any circumstance, gossip about a passenger in front of them. Even if you decide to speak in a different language and you think they're not gonna understand, honey, they can surprise you. Trust me. I know someone who was trying to gossip about a passenger, and they were like somewhere in Africa. No, it was like South America or something, actually, like random, like somewhere so random, you know, and they weren't even trying to gossip like anything super mean. It was more just like, oh, can you make up your mind if you want 2 sugars or 3 sugars, like, you know, something like that. And so this person said that to the other flight attendant, but they said it in Afrikaans. Do you know what the passenger did? The passenger turned around in Afrikaans and responded to their comment. So you'd be surprised how many languages, especially in South Africa, how many other languages other people can talk, and just how well they can understand what you're saying, even if you're trying to be sneaky and stuff. I think it is a super inappropriate and super unprofessional thing to do. Even if what a passenger has just done or said to you is super annoying or something like that, then I think it's good. You kind of in this industry always learn to just be the bigger person. You just tough it out, you know, and wait until you're back in the galley, and then you can, like, you know, go off your head and tell the other flight attendant about, he said this and this, he couldn't make up his mind if he wanted 2 sugars or 3, you know. Then you can do that, but please try to avoid doing it in front of the passenger, because trust me, that passenger could understand what you're saying. They could remember your name and maybe want to report it to your company that you were unprofessional and you said this and this about them in another language to the other flight attendant, and you just don't want that to be on your record. So try to just, like, you know, hold yourself back, pull yourself towards yourself, and just keep your mouth shut. The next thing I would like to mention is that embarrassing a passenger in front of the other passengers is not cool. I understand that we do get frustrated about, like, you know, people don't want to turn their people don't want to remove their earphones and do this and that, but there are ways to go about it that are like professional ways. You don't have to, like, like, you know, when I think about that, I think of La Sizwe. I don't know if any of you guys know La Sizwe. I'm sure you do. I mean, come on, he's like got over 100,000 subscribers. and he's absolutely hilarious. But I always think of how, like, when she's at a till or something and somebody is trying to swipe their card and it declines, and he screams, "It's declining!" like to the entire store, "It's declining!" Like, that's what I think of. And that is so embarrassing to the customer. And if something similar were to happen on an aircraft, if somebody were like not wanting to remove their earphones or something, you can't just turn around and scream in front of every passenger and say, "Well, this guy doesn't want to take his earphones off, so I guess we're not going anywhere." Like, you can't do stuff like that, guys. Come on, this is your place of work. We are not like playing here. Like, and also it will just kind of it will show other crew members that you really don't have much respect for people around you, whether they're your passengers who, let's face it, pay your salary, or your fellow crew who are supposed to support you in your place of work. Like, it just kind of like, like, you know, makes people feel like, oh, okay, you're willing to do that? You're embarrassing passengers? Like, no, just tell the other crew member, like, you know, quietly, go and call the captain, let him know what's happening, and let's sort the situation out in a professional manner. But don't stand there screaming, embarrassing the passenger, or trying to embarrass them in front of the other passengers in any sort of a way, please. Talking bad about your fellow crew members is also not cool. We all know somebody that's a gossip, that just loves to tell you what's going on lately, or that loves to hear what's going on lately. And they're like, "Oh no, tell me what happened." Like, you don't want to be that person, you know? Even if you did hear something really bad about another crew member, like, I mean, guys, who cares? Honestly, who cares if somebody was fighting with somebody else? Who cares if somebody's boyfriend dumped them? Like, it's not your life. How does it affect you? If it does not immediately affect you, your happiness, your livelihood, your salary, your job, then it's got nothing to do with you. So stay out of it. It's that simple. Stay out of it. Why are you getting involved with other people's business? You're supposed to be there to work. You're supposed to be doing your overwing briefing, but you're standing here in the galley gossiping about Susan. Like, not cool, bro. Not cool. My next tip, because I think you guys might think that I just want you to be super serious and super stiff in the job. It's not quite that way. My next tip is to not be too serious, but also to not just be floating around aimlessly. You don't want to be that person that's just super serious, that nobody can joke with, that nobody really feels like they can relate to at all. But also, you don't want to be that person who's just constantly not taking their job seriously, who, like, you can't even find them when it's time to do the service because they're sitting in the flight deck chatting and gossiping and khanning on with the pilots, you know? Like, you don't want to be that person. You want to find a good balance. You want to be able to just banter with everyone in a nice way. You want to be friendly with everyone, but also you want them to know that you do know your job and that they can respect you when it comes to that. Tip number 9 actually kind of comes off of that, and that is to work on being good at your job. Once you become a flight attendant, it's not the end of the road. I have mentioned it before. We have annual assessments, annual recurrent, annual exams that we have to write, and you know, you're constantly having to prove that you're good enough to be a flight attendant. But you know, my biggest piece of advice is not to wait until the day before your recurrent to open up your manual and check how does the oxygen bottle work again. You know, like, don't wait until then, because then you'll be super stressed out. You want to always be confident that you know what you're doing and that passengers can trust you to actually be there for their safety. So every once in a while, just go through your manual. Every once in a while, just go over your equipment. It's one thing I love about working multi-crews. In the beginning of the briefing, the senior usually will ask us certain questions about, like, AVMED, or a question about firefighting, or a question about just our equipment on board and stuff like that. That's great, but they don't ask every single question that there is, you know, to ask. So maybe if you've noticed that, like, you know what, in the last 3 months I haven't actually thought much about how to treat burns, so you might want to go through your manual and just look over that, just so that you don't really stress too much about that when it comes to recurrent annual assessments and stuff like that. You just want to always make sure that you are confident and you are comfortable in your role. And of course, my biggest tip to you is don't forget to smile. Smiles make everybody look more beautiful, more friendly, more inviting, just more confident overall. And I feel like as a flight attendant, it is such a huge thing. You want to smile at your fellow crew, smile at the pilots, smile at the passengers. If you're having a bad day, trust me, smiling at somebody and seeing them genuinely smile back at you will make you feel just a little bit better. It might not cure your entire bad mood, it might not make your entire bad day a ton better, but it'll do something. It's worth a try. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you all on the next one. Please don't forget to spread good vibes and be kind. Bye bye.